Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce my guest today, Shira Miller. Shira is the author of Free and Clear, Get Unstuck and Live the Life You Want. Her book features a step-by-step process for getting unstuck and staying that way for good. A two-time TEDx speaker, certified professional coactive coach, and chief communications officer of a $2 billion corporation. She knows a lot about getting unstuck and teaching people how to do the same for themselves. Shira has transitioned from financial ruin to prosperity, chronic health challenges to a constant state of wellness, obesity to sustaining a healthy weight, divorce to lasting love, and an unfulfilling career to a purpose-driven life. Well, who wouldn't want all that? She's written over 100 articles on Medium, LinkedIn, and Arianna Huffington's Thrive Global platform about well-being at work and home, prioritizing self-care, and creating wellness-based cultures. Shira's story and opinions have been recognized in Shape, Health, First for Women, Quick and Simple, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and Emory Magazine. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her husband. And if you want to learn more about her, visit shiramiller.com to learn more, and that will all be in the show notes. So please join me in welcoming Shira Miller. Welcome, Shira.
Hey, Tammy. Thank you for having me today.
I'm so excited to have you here. We've known each other for many years, and I'm just tickled to have you here. So, you know, on Work from the Inside Out, that we like to start with the early years, the formative years. So tell us a little bit about that part of your life and how those years may or may not have formed and shaped where you are today.
They very much influenced it. I am the daughter of a delicatessen owner from Columbia, South Carolina. And no, that's not a punchline of a joke. It's funny, people always think that, but it really formed so much of the basis of who I am today. Working in a delicatessen, really from middle school on until I left for college, taught me so much about interacting with people, solving problems, what to do if you run out of pastrami and the customers are unhappy. It was a really wonderful place to teach me that everyone is a person and there's nobody to be intimidated about, and just, handle people, meet them in the space at which they're in one by one.
Wow. When did you start working there?
Well, legally at age 12, I worked in the summers, but my parents have pictures of me running around, helping to bag takeout orders when I was 6 and 7 years old, wrapping pickles.
Oh, that's fun. I love that. We could use a good deli up here in Boston.
And I would assume you already have them. I'll tell you, my youngest brother, Bruce, my grandfather has started the business. It's called Groucho's. Bruce took it over. He's expanded. He has 35 franchises all over the South and North Carolina and in Georgia.
Wow. Great. Oh, good. I'm going to pass that around. I've got family down there.
Tell them.
It's wonderful. I will. Definitely. Oh, that's exciting. So take us forward from there. I mean, clearly you learned. I mean, how could you not have learned a lot from all those years and watching your family business like that and being a part of it?
It taught me a lot about what I wanted to do and also what I didn't want to do. Exactly. That's very key. When I went to college, I went to Emory University in Atlanta. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I had a lot of pressure to be a lawyer. I competed in public speaking and debate. That's why I chose Emory. It had one of the best debate teams in the country and felt a lot of pressure. An uncle was a prominent lawyer, and I really wasn't interested in doing that. I worked at a law firm one summer and couldn't stand it.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that taught me, no, this is not what you want to do. So it really wasn't until my junior year I started getting some clues. I was a peon at the NBC News Southeastern Bureau, started out archiving tapes and then, caught a break there. And that really led to me getting into public relations. So again, not the deli business, though at many times in my life, I have worked at the corporate headquarters of food companies, including what I do today.
Mm-hmm. So you went to Emory, which I will add is also my father's alma mater. He went a few years before you, though. And so have you been in Atlanta ever since?
I have. I've had multiple job offers all over the country. I am a cold weather wimp. Tammy, if I lived in Boston, I don't think I could survive a season. I would always plan my business travel that, okay, there's like 3 months where I'm just going to do minimal because I'm not good at it. Not good at it.
Oh, well, that's why we have sweater weather. So you ended up not going to law school and going into PR right out of school. Is that right?
Yes. The job at NBC helped me network with someone who had a PR firm who used to be in news. And then from that job, I started my career officially at Days Inn's headquarters, used to be in Atlanta. And I joined as a public relations coordinator.
Oh, wow. And how long did you stay there for?
I was there 3.5 years. I was offered the chance to move to New Jersey. They were acquired by another corporation. I couldn't move at the time, commitments in Atlanta. And from there, did a stint at a nonprofit hospital, then went back into corporate.
Wow. What a great experience to have such different settings.
I've worked in so many different settings. And again, it's been so interesting for me to learn what I like and what I don't. And the assumptions you have about places, it all really comes down to the people you work with and how you show up yourself at work.
Isn't that interesting? I have said this over and over the years that sometimes, not always, but I'd say that sometimes it almost doesn't matter what you're doing if you like the people and you're in an environment you're happy in.
It's so true.
Yeah. So you worked in corporate, then you worked in a nonprofit hospital, then you went back to corporate. You said you've also been in the food business. I mean, after the deli. So how did you figure out what you liked and didn't like? Was it just, oh, I like this, I don't like this? Or were there specific experiences along the way that really formed and shaped your ideas about when it was time to move on, or how you made decisions about how, what you wanted to do for work? Because I mean, today you're a communications executive, so that's far more expansive than what I think of as PR. So I'm curious about how that all unfolded for you.
I've always been very curious about people and how to make things better. And back when I was at Days Inn 30 years ago, we didn't have an internal communications program. So I remember conducting research. This is before people used the internet, back in the Stone Age. Just doing a lot of research and creating the first employee communications effort. So in all of my corporate jobs, while I led with public relations, I created many other opportunities to be in charge of, to learn crisis communications. My peon work at NBC News really helped me with that over the years. And so I've always gravitated towards, for lack of a better term, things that make people feel seen and acknowledged and heard. That fills me up. And so sometimes that's programs that communicate out to external publics. Sometimes that's employee communications, but it's everything under that umbrella. And eventually I did have my own PR agency for 13 years too, before I went back to corporate this time.
Oh, okay.
So, but that, the through line there of people has always been present. And that's why I became a certified executive coach and added all of those skills when I intentionally went back into corporate back in 2014.
Okay. So I was just going to get to that and ask you about when you decided to get coaching training and what led you to that. Because it sounds like you were very oriented towards clearly the way you describe, just the way you even described people feeling seen and heard is a very coach-like thing to say. And you and I are both certified in the same exact coaching program. So we have that in common. So what propelled you into that, or were there other types of professional development you did before that? A lot of times when I've spoken with people who went into coaching, they often at some point kind of evolved away from what they were already doing. But I think what's interesting about what you've been doing is you have stayed in your, day job, so to speak, while doing all this, writing a book, doing, a lot of keynote speaking, and really blending your work in communications, but then also supporting a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Thank you. It's been an interesting balance.
Mm-hmm.
To go back to answer that question, what propelled me to get interested in coaching?
Yeah.
It actually came from coming out of one of the hardest times in my life. Back in 2009, we had that little thing called the Great Recession, and it killed 200,000 small businesses, including my own. I had a staff of 6. We won a lot of awards. We were in a fancy office tower. It took longer for it to hit the industries I served. I didn't see it coming. I just re-signed a 6-year office lease.
Oh, wow.
Right at the beginning of 2009. And then 6 months later, all the business started drying up. And I remember, and I had a lot of debt. And I had to let great people go. So back then, I spent 4 years paying off over $100,000 in debt. I was on the hook for that sublease. I did all the work by myself. I kept a couple of big clients, but I worked constantly and could barely breathe. I paid off every cent of what I owed. I continued to do good work for clients, and I was exhausted. And it was a crazy time. And, I had good things happening at the time. I met my husband in 2009. I mean, so it was a lot of.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's crazy, but so by 2013, when I could finally start breathing again, and I started thinking about what do I want to do? What's next in my life? Because I believe we have many different chapters as we learn and grow and evolve. I had a really good coach. Still my coach. Her name's Michelle Goss. She's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know Michelle from CTV?
I know her name. I hear her name quite often, actually.
She's fantastic. So Michelle said, when I was doing some exploration, I think you'd be a good coach. So I signed up for the initial weekend where you start learning about it. And I loved it. I decided to, go the whole distance and go through the certification. And in 2014, I realized, I'm done with having a PR agency. It's, limped along. What's next? And I really saw bringing my coaching expertise together with my corporate communications expertise and finding the right corporate job. And, Tammy, I had so many naysayers tell me, you're not going to be able to do that.
Really?
People said, oh, gosh, yeah. People said, well, no, those things usually aren't combined. You might need to go work for an agency. You've had an agency for a while. I had corporations saying you haven't been in a corporation in 13 years. A lot of people were very narrow-minded, but I knew and I trusted myself. And that's a really important lesson. You trust that internal voice. I knew the right thing would manifest, and it did. I was just really persistent and was offered the job here. I worked for National DCP. We are the $2 billion supply chain owned by Dunkin's franchisees. So we do all aspects of supply chain, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer. I was hired as the EVP of Corporate Communications and got promoted a few years ago, and have been here since.
Wow. Good thing you didn't listen to those naysayers.
They're always going to happen. It's interesting as I think about kind of, what's next and how I evolve. I anticipate I'll have the same kind of wave as I think about crafting what lies ahead in my future. And it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is a voice in my head.
I agree. I hope everyone's listening to that, because that is the epitome of work from the inside out. And that is the epitome of what I think most of us should be doing when we are at a crossroads, because it's not to say that there aren't well-intentioned people giving advice or that we shouldn't think about what people are telling us, because sometimes, you might get a good piece of advice that's a bit of a warning signal or whatever. It doesn't mean you shouldn't keep your eye on the prize. It just means, oh, so this person's telling me there might be some speed bumps in the road. Okay, so I'll slow down. It doesn't mean I'm not going to keep going. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people who allow that kind of thing, though, to stop them in their tracks. And they think, oh, wait, this person knows more than I do, and I'm going to stop and pivot and do something else. And I think that people give up on themselves too easily. Not everyone, of course, but I'm so glad you spoke to that. So that was in 2013 or 14? Am I getting
2014?
Right. And so you proved a lot of them wrong. Not that that was your goal. And by then you were also still in the middle of your coaching training too. Am I getting that right?
I had just gotten certified. I got the certificate back from CTI right after I took this job. And I use coaching here. I created leadership programs. So there's a lot of things in which I've gotten to use it. I use it to positively influence outcomes. I built our corporate communications effort from scratch here. I feel I use my coaching skills almost every day.
I think there's a lot of overlap, but I think some people don't always understand what sort of what the underpinnings are of kind of a coaching approach to things. And you can use coaching to supervise people, to mentor people, to do all kinds of things, to teach leadership. There's a lot of ways in which I think a lot of the coaching skills and tools that we learned in our program and in other programs that really do apply in some really healthy workplaces. So I can imagine that you're making great use of all of that.
It continues to help me to this day as I look forward when I, I worked the full-time job when I was writing and editing my book. And I had a lot of, of course, doubt, questioning things happens when you're in your process. I'm sure you felt the same.
Yeah.
And, it helped me kind of get right on the right path.
Yeah.
But self-doubt's a normal thing. It's kind of what you do with it and how you deal with your inner saboteur.
Right. Right. So what do you do when your inner saboteur shows up?
I journal. Journaling it's not a secret weapon. I'll talk about to anybody who'll listen. If I'm going to have a good day, I wake up early. I usually work out in the morning, but I try to journal and it frames the day. And sometimes I'll do stream of consciousness where I just let all of the thoughts come out. And if I've got a lot of negativity in my brain, naysaying voices internally, okay, get it all out there and then talk to it and say, okay, I know maybe you've shown up because at some point you had good intentions. You tried to protect me. You're trying to keep me from getting hurt. But you saying I can't do that, or I'm not doing that good enough, or I'm, all of the circumstances, I've outgrown you. I hear you and you're wrong. So I'll talk to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed a number of people I've spoken with who literally have conversations with themselves and they move on from that. So, did you have a conversation with yourself when you decided to write a book? How did that come about?
I've always wanted to write a book ever since I
Oh,
was a ever since I was a
really?
kid. Yes, I always thought it would be really fun to write a book. And
Huh.
I had a couple of instances where I started working on something and started and stopped. I actually wrote a fiction book, and I had some literary agents say, "You're a good writer. This particular story is kind of meh. Write something else."
Uh-huh.
I just kind of let it sit for a while. And I started thinking, what can I put out in the world? And what am I really good at? And I'm really good at getting unstuck. I've been run down. I've got an autoimmune disease. I've been through a couple of divorces before I met the right guy. I mean, there's a lot of things that could have run me down and kept me down
Yeah.
as roadkill. And I kind of picked myself up. And
Yeah.
so, that's why I decided to start working on it. And I interviewed so many wonderful people, including you. You gave me such amazing expert advice. Thank you. You're
Oh.
one of the wisest, best voices in the book.
Oh my gosh. Oh, go on. Go on, Shira. Say more. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of it, and to also have the privilege of being able to endorse it as well. Um, I'm curious, when you started to write books, so you've been wanting to write a book most of your life, and you took a stab at fiction. And obviously, the book, Free and Clear, Get Unstuck and Live the Life You Want, is a nonfiction book. So, curious how you decided to go in that direction. And then when you started writing, is this what you envisioned the book would be? Or did it have different iterations along the way? Because I think a lot of people, if they haven't written a book, and even if they have, they don't always know what other people's process is like. But I think that the process of writing a book is in itself its own uh little world, you know?
That's a great question, Tammy. I don't want to say I did everything wrong. I changed my approach multiple times. If you can picture somebody who's starting to paint, there's certain people who start to paint, maybe they do an outline, they really think about it. And then there's other people, let's say Jackson Pollock style, who just
Right.
throw all the splatter on a wall. So I
Right.
had little ideas and I'd kind of develop them and I'd write little articles about it. And I had a book ready right before COVID. So it was ready. And then when COVID happened, I pivoted again. I felt, oh my gosh, I need much more that's dealing with the present. And then when I started working with my publisher, they're great. They said, it needs to be more of a process. You need to rewrite probably 65, 70% of this book. And I went, oh, okay. And then did it. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of writing, a lot of rewriting. It is truly one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I am incredibly proud of it, because at so many times I thought, oh, my baby's ugly. What? Everyone's going to read this. And what I ended up with, I'm very happy with, because I feel it's of service to people.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, though. I know I reached a point with my book where I said, you know what? It's like I'm about 10 months pregnant now, and I'm saying, I know I'm supposed to love this thing, but just get it out of me now.
So true.
And I remember having that feeling. I think what I love, there's a bunch of things I love about your book. First of all, it's organized in a way that makes it, I think, very accessible for the reader. They can really walk through it and not get, overwhelmed. If you're feeling stuck, the last thing you need is to feel overwhelmed. What do I do next? How do I do it? And so I love the way you kind of build the understanding around that. And then you build in different exercises, and you give people a chance to see themselves through a few different lenses. And then you dot all the chapters with different scenarios and stories. So it feels like you're not alone. You know that other people have gone through similar or things that make you think, okay, I can learn from other people's stories too. And I know that you did a lot of interviews. Um, and and so I really can appreciate, I mean, obviously I appreciate sharing other people's stories. I did the same in my book, but I really do. And I love all the exercises that are dotted throughout too, so that it's not just, you're not just telling people, here's what you do. It's more like you're walking them through an opportunity to understand themselves better so that they can unstick themselves. It's like the way I describe coaching a lot to people is I say, you're handing us the fishing pole rather than handing us the fish, right? And you're giving people a chance to really feel they are in control. And I think when people feel stuck, they feel like there's something else at play or something else that's got the power. And so that's what I love is it gives people a chance to really take more control over their own lives.
Thank you. I wanted it to be accessible and easy. And
yeah,
you can do, you can go to one section, to one exercise. There's something I talk about a lot with people in exercise called a reverse bucket list. And I've referred people to it. And in 5 minutes, it can help you overcome self-doubt and build more confidence.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Love that. And there's, everything. It's very, there's something that you can actually do. You don't have to learn how to do it. You can just take a dive in and do it. And, what was your favorite part of putting the book together, of working on the book, other than it being done?
I was going to do that punchline. I think it was interviewing people. I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
And I would get inspired by people who would talk to me about their experiences. How did they get unstuck? What did they face? There are a lot of stories. Some are very dramatic. Some are more things you'll see in everyday life. I wanted to have a real cross-section of people, many people in the US, but there's a lot international as well. So I enjoyed that. I've always been the kind of person, when I'm reading a magazine article or flipping through a book, I like people's stories. That's one of the reasons I liked your book so much. I'd be like, oh, yes, look at this person's story. So I was fascinated by that. And then figuring out the process was something that I enjoyed as well. If you take the personality tests, I'm just going to go to Myers-Briggs right now. My natural state is a little bit more free-flowing, ENFP, but I learned how to be J at the end. Okay. And I learned how to be more organized because I was lacking all of that. So the process of how do I put this puzzle together so that it's of service and it makes sense. And then once you get unstuck, things are going to happen in life.
Right.
How do you deal with it, down the road? So I liked setting that up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrific. I've got the book right in front of me now. I'm leafing through it and I'm seeing all these names of people that I recognize. It's really fun. And so the book came out and you've been doing a lot of speaking for years. This is well before the book. What kinds of things or what kinds of groups do you speak in front of? And I mean, you talk about the book, but what are some of the other topics or aligned topics that you talk about? What would people be looking for if they wanted to be in touch with you for a speaking engagement?
Most frequently, I address corporate groups, conferences, or even women's retreats. I was a guest expert at Canyon Ranch in Tucson last year, delivering a couple of presentations, and I'm working on, they're building an experience weekend around that this year. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So the kinds of topics, and I've got these all listed on my website, shiramiller.com, but how to become more resilient. How to overcome self-doubt. One of my favorite speeches, and I did this as a TEDx also, is stop apologizing when you haven't done anything wrong.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It really resonates with the female audience, but really people of all genders over apologize. I don't care if you're a CEO. I've seen it in action. So this calls people out on it, but it gives you some funny but really practical tips on how do you overcome that obnoxious habit that is holding you back in your personal and professional life. I've got that. I've got how to thrive in a male-dominated environment.
Yeah.
And even a topic, Adulting 101. And this came out of, I did a podcast interview with these great young ladies in their 20s. And they asked me so many interesting questions about how do you know if you're stuck or you're just in your 20s? And I was really able to give them a lot of good advice and help, and got so much out of that the Adulting 101 is really for college audiences. And I'm working with a couple of groups on that right now.
Oh, that's wonderful. So really, your work really cuts across all the generations.
It does. If I had to pick my key target audience, I would say it's women, their late 30s to early 60s is probably my core, because when we're at that point in our life, we've got change. Maybe we're raising children. Maybe we're dealing with aging parents. We're trying to figure out who we are in our careers.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. So it works if you're at the beginning of your career trying to figure out adulting. It works. And if you're in the midpoint, trying to figure out what comes next, or build your legacy later.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. And I think also when you've had a certain amount of experience already in your life, it gives you something to kind of bounce off of, so that to think about, well, is this stuck, or is this just what age I'm at? I love that question. That's a great question. So if people wanted to learn more about what you're doing or wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Go to my website. It's shiramiller.com. You can see all I'm doing. I constantly have a bunch of free articles and content. You can take a free quiz to find out how you might be stuck and what to do about it.
Nice.
Got a lot of different ways to interact. You can see different videos. And you can also follow me on social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Facebook. And I always post fun stuff on Instagram about working out.
Oh, I know. I love that. I see you working out all the time. That's great. So one final question, Shira. And that is, we have a lot of people listening who are thinking about what's next for them. Some of them might be feeling stuck. Some of them might be feeling just, they're okay, but they think, I'm just kind of wondering what to do next. I'm not really sure. What would be a key piece of advice you might give them as they're considering their next steps?
Follow your joy. Start to notice what lights you up. What do you like to do? Don't even think about being practical. Are you the kind of person, are you really into music? Do you like bringing people together at dinner parties? Are you somebody who's good at solving problems? Just think about what makes you happy, and then you can figure out how that can manifest in a career setting.
I love that. Thank you so much, Shira. This has been a delight, and I can't wait for your next book.
Well, I can't either, because I'm not going to be working on one yet. I'm going to let myself breathe this year, but next year I'm going to see what's resonating with people. I probably will have an ebook come out this year for emerging leaders. It's got some interesting tips of the things people aren't telling you about how to succeed at the executive level. So look for that in the next couple of months.
Well, we will stay posted. I just think you're a wonderful writer, and just really enjoy all that you're up to. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tammy. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Shira Miller. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her earlier life, her transitions, and her current professional endeavors. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you're interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoularloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 219. Are you anticipating your next professional move? check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out: Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available in paperback and ebook editions through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. If you are inspired by this episode with Shira, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And please do subscribe so that you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. And if you're enjoying the podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would write a written review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find. Just go to my website, tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Click on the Apple Podcast button and follow the instructions provided there. You can also help to sustain this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee. Go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, I would appreciate your support. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I would love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.